Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. We got minus 160 on the Natural Born Killer and plus 140 on Matt the Immortal Brown. Let's start off with Carlos Condit, who's coming off a victory over Court McGee. It was his first victory since he defeated Thiago Alves way back in May of 2015, where he finished him with a beautiful elbow that actually broke the nose of Thiago Alves, which they were forced to stop the fight in between rounds there. But he's been on a very tumultuous run, giving up fights to Damian Maia, Neil Magny, Cowboy Oliveira, and Michael Chiesa, then finally getting back on the winning track against Court McGee. But in the fight with McGee, it was more so McGee fighting the type of fight that Condit needed to win that fight, and not really implementing the style that we've known and loved from Court McGee, which is that grinding style of just pushing guys up against the cage, getting takedowns, and just having an overall MMA game. For some reason, he just went out there and just went strike for strike with Carlos Condit, and that's not how you want to go about it, especially when Condit's able to get out of the way of the big shots that are coming his way from Court McGee and kind of just get his game going with kicks and body punches and just the style that Carlos Condit brings to the table. Changes stances very fluidly, throws kicks and punches in combinations as well too, which very much helps in terms of volume and scoring on the judge's eyes. And yeah, that was just a very unfortunate performance from Court McGee. And I'd be very, very upset if I was one of those people that took that minus 130, minus 140 on Court McGee in that fight, hoping that he'd try to drag this fight to the ground. Because one thing that we've come to know about Carlos Condit is that he's just never going to work on his takedown defense. Let me backtrack a little bit. He might work on the takedown defense, but it just never shows in the cage. Like, it's pretty easy to take him down, and more often than not, his opponents have found that method of victory where they just continuously take him down and play in his guard and keep top control, land some good ground and pound, and just score in that way, whether they're able to get a submission eventually or get the finish themselves or just go on to a decision victory itself. The one issue there, I think it is because Carlos Condit is so comfortable off of his back, and he thinks he's going to be able to catch somebody off of his back with his jiu-jitsu, because he has had near opportunities against opponents, most notably and most recently against Michael Chiesa, where he was able to throw up a triangle against Chiesa, and it was pretty tight. Unfortunately, Michael Chiesa was able to explode out of that position and not get not tap to that armbar. So the last time Carlos Condit actually did submit somebody was over 13 years ago against Carlo Prater in the WEC. So he's never even gotten a submission victory in the UFC. So not sure why he continues to play that game and think that he's going to be able to pull something off or pull off a reversal or whatever it is. He does his best work on his feet, but unfortunately, he just never shows the urgency of getting back to his feet. So that's where I think the issue comes with Carlos Condit. He looks great on the feet when people are allowing him to play his game. Unfortunately for him, I don't think Matt Brown's going to allow him to play that game. Now let's go over to the Matt Brown side of things, who's coming off a loss to Miguel Baeza, who's a bright up-and-coming star. I think Baeza has top 5 to top 10 potential. So to lose to a kid like that, especially, closing in on 40 years old, not to mention today is Matt Brown's 40th birthday. I'm recording this on January 10th, which is the Sunday before fight week. And it's tough for him to go out there and try to beat a young up-and-comer. Luckily for him, though, he's fighting Carlos Condit, who himself has had a ton of miles on his record. He's coming into his 45th fight, so it's not a young, spry little kid that Matt Brown needs to worry about across from him. It's been the complete opposite, that Matt Brown has been able to go on a 2-fight winning streak before the Baeza fight, where he put out Diego Sanchez and he put out Ben Saunders as well too. And then before that, lost to Donald Cerrone and Jake Ellenberger. Especially that Ellenberger loss, he lost as a heavy favorite. I'm sure a lot of people got their parlays busted that night as well too. But yeah, I think Matt Brown brings that style that is very effective against a guy like Carlos Condit, which is stay in his face, don't give him that space that he needs to get his striking off, and just drown him. You know what I mean? Just push him up against the cage, use some dirty boxing. But even if it's not the clinch or the dirty boxing, just continuously press forward and land shots. Don't discriminate to the face or to the body or even to the legs. And we've seen that Matt Brown still has a little bit of power in his hands that he could potentially hurt Carlos Condit with and drop as well too. too. Matt Brown obviously has been susceptible to body punches and kicks in the past too, so that's something that we're always going to have to keep our eye on. And Carlos Condit does have a good kicking game, so that's something that we should, definitely make a note of when going into this fight. However, I think that Matt Brown, given his style and what we've seen from him as of late, and even though he got knocked out in his last fight, I think that's kind of baked into this line. Personally, I would line it a little bit closer to an even type of fight. I'm not sure where people think Carlos Condit is just because he got a victory over Court McGee last time around. But again, that was due to Court McGee playing the game that Carlos Condit needed to get his hand raised in that fight. I don't think Matt Brown's going to allow him to do that. I'd be surprised if we see Matt Brown just chilling on the outside within kicking range, within Carlos Condit range, if that's what you want to call it. But I think that we're going to see Brown pushing forward pretty much the entire fight and really taking it to Carlos Condit, which should allow Matt Brown to get his hand raised. I will give Carlos Condit some daps in terms of his durability. Like it's been a long time since we've seen him actually knocked out. Most of his losses have come via submission as of late, and I don't think that Matt Brown is going to go out there and submit him either. So it's either Matt Brown via TKO, which I still am a little bit hesitant about, but I do like the decision for Matt Brown a little bit more than that. So the side that I'm going to be going with is Matt Brown, taking it to Carlos Condit, staying in his face, not letting him breathe, not letting him get comfortable, and I think he ends up getting a decision victory. I think that once people start seeing this fight play out, they're going to be like, fuck, of course, this is the way the fight's going to go. Just as Carlos Condit's fight against Court McGee went, like within that first minute, you're just like, damn, of course this is the way the fight's going to go. And I think with this Matt Brown thing, it's going to be the same way. I think a lot of people are expecting Matt Brown to go out there and get knocked out. However, Carlos Condit, not really like a one-punch knockout type of kind of guy. He finished Thiago Alves. Before that, he finished Martin Kampmann way back in 2013. But since then, just never really had success in terms of rocking, dropping, and finishing anybody. And even the Thiago Alves finish, that was like a beautifully placed elbow that cracked the nose of Thiago Alves, and eventually it was kind of like an injury TKO, if anything. And then the Martin Kampmann one, that was like a Max Holloway type of finish where it's just an accumulation of strikes, and then once that fourth round hit, he was able to kind of overwhelm Martin Kampmann and get the victory that way as well too. So I do like Matt Brown to win this fight. I do like him as an underdog at plus 140. The only flaw I see on his side is the fact that he's 40 years old. But given the fact that he's only fighting Carlos Condit in this point in time, I don't think it's too much to really harp on. So I like Matt Brown. I think he wins this fight via decision, and I think he's a solid underdog play as well.